Welcome to Lawyer Like an Athlete podcast.
Welcome to Lawyer Like an Athlete podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Wood, a licensed psychologist, executive coach, and author of the book Lawyer Like an Athlete, an ABA published training manual for lawyering like an athlete that focuses on sustainable high performance in the legal profession. And today I'm joined by Cari Sheehan, who is Assistant General Counsel at Taft Law. Cari advises attorneys on ethics, professional responsibility, and risk management. And she's also an adjunct professor and frequent speaker on professionalism and sustainable legal practice, which is a lot of work, which is why you're going to want to hear from her today, because Cari's going to talk to us about how she maintains a really demanding legal career and also keeps her life pretty balanced. So tell us, Cari, how do you do this? What does your life balance, work-life balance actually look like in your day-to-day work and life?
It does change from time to time, and there's no set formula for it, but I will say that my best friend is my calendar and that I keep stuff color coded to make sure that I can fit everything in that I need to fit in. I keep my family schedule on there. I keep my personal time on there, which I know sounds crazy, but sometimes we have to calendar in personal time to make sure that we get it. And I kind of live and die by my calendar. And it's a strong point to make that even calendaring workout time or fitting it in where you can, and it doesn't look the same for everyone. But that is really how I kind of keep my balance, is using my calendar to making sure I make every minute count and that I know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. And even just blocking out time sometimes, and you have nothing really planned, but you just need it either to focus on a project without getting any phone calls, without getting any meetings put on your calendar. That has always helped me too, to kind of keep a balance when it comes to working and, personal time in life and just getting everything done.
What I like about what you're saying, it sounds like you have
It's-
one calendar for work and life.
yes,
Is that
I
right?
do. And
Yeah, and I think
yes,
that's great.
because it's not, a lot of people misconceive that, work-life balance is you have to keep stuff separate, but that's not how, especially as a lawyer, our lives work. We're intertwined.
That's
Like
right.
I get up in the morning,
Right.
I make breakfast, you get my daughter off to school, and I start working because I primarily work from home a lot of times because a lot of stuff I do can be done remotely. And then too, instead of, going down to an office of a friend, maybe I throw in a load of laundry or I do something there. Like, our lives are never fully separated. And the more we come to realize that, the more you can find the perceived balance of it too. Because you're not trying to say, well, I just have to be at work between 8 and 6. I can't do anything else. Well, you can. You just have to, think of it more as not
Right.
a starting stop time. Just, how do you fit in what you need to fit in? So I do keep one calendar for my daughter, for my husband, for myself, my extracurriculars, my daughter's extracurriculars, and then all my work appointments go on one calendar, color coded. And that's kind of how we find, what fits in and where. And I don't look at my job as an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 6 or like anything like that. I look at it as I'm a lawyer 24/7. And if I need to work at night, that's great. But then I find my balance during the day. I'm, giving and taking here and there. So if I need to spend a field trip with my daughter to find that balance, then okay. Then when she goes to bed at night, I'm working. You've got to get out of this inflexible boundaries and go into the mindset of,
Yes.
we are lawyers all the time and it's going to look different. When I was younger, the only thing I wanted to do was go to yoga at 5:45 every night. And so I would make sure I was out of the office
Mhm.
at that
Yes.
yoga class, home by 7, eat dinner, and then if I need to pick something back up again at night, I would do it. But you can create a life where you're not solely at your desk 9 to 5 and miserable, but throw some stuff in, but just know you've got to balance that on the back end too, to get your hours in and to get your work done, and think of it as one holistic approach when it comes to it.
I totally agree with you. This part about being one person, and also what you said about not expecting that you're going to divide your personal life and your professional life just perfectly with one part on a scale and the other on the other part of, the scale. And it's totally separate and weighed evenly. That just doesn't happen anymore. And, I find a lot of attorneys come to me saying, I'm really trying to achieve life balance with my work and it's not working. Well, it's because they're looking at that old-fashioned model. And you are very progressive with this idea. So when did you start to do this? At what point in your career did you come up with this, what I would call a very enlightened way of looking at balance?
It was actually early on in my career when I was a plaintiff's lawyer. And with a trial schedule, your calendar's all over the place. And I remember just being miserable. Like I felt like I couldn't go work out, like I couldn't leave the office. And I loved to run at that point in time. I loved to do hot yoga. So I always made it a point to try to get to that hot yoga class. And then I started putting it on my calendar. And then I needed kind of a boost of energy in the afternoon. And there was a treadmill in the basement of our office. The attorney I was working for at the time, it was kind of more of like a smaller firm. He put a treadmill down there for me because he knew I liked to run. So I would literally get up from my desk, go down and run like 2 or 3 miles on the treadmill, which is, if you run a quick amount of time, it's not that long of time. Shower, wash off in the office, put my work clothes back on, and go back up to my desk. And like, you just integrate it into part of your day. And then as time progressed and I got married and I started having kids, it had to be integrated in, or I never saw my daughter. Or if I had kept having the mindset of I have to be at the office from 8 to 6, I don't get home till 6:37, she's in bed. That wasn't working for me. And so it's kind of like you have to find ways to integrate it in. So even if I had to, what they call, people say leave early, which I don't call it leaving early. I say you were leaving because you have an appointment. It doesn't mean you're leaving early because you're going to
Yes.
work later. Like you got to get that out of your head
Right.
that every time you leave the office, you're done working sometimes. That's not always the case. But it's allowed me, as my daughter's grown, I'm a room mom for her first grade class. I volunteer at her school. I go on all the field trips. I still work a full-time job, still manage, time like date nights with my husband. I still do all that stuff. But I've gotten out this mindset of I have to be at my desk 8 to 6 or 8 to 5. Like I go with her class. They have like a thing every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 to 9. I go every Wednesday with her to spend that time with her and help their classroom with that. I'm home at my desk by 9:15. And so then, you just kind of start integrating it into your day like a normal thing. And I probably now work more, I would say, because I've stopped looking at work as kind of like a something that I have to do, but it's something I enjoy doing and it's just part of my day. And I could be taking a phone call all the way up until I walk in her school, which is fine. And then I turn off
Mhm.
my phone, I spend time with her, and then if I need to pick back up a phone call as I'm driving, I do. So you've just got to get out of that mindset of you need to compartmentalize when you need to make a
Yes.
more holistic approach for
Yes.
it. Hmm.
Yeah. And one thing I'm hearing in what you're saying is that your schedule and your idea of balance and how that shows up for you changes as you change, as your life changes. So you mentioned, at one point in your career, you were very focused on exercise, running, hot yoga. Then that changed when you had your daughter. And I think that's important because things are always changing around us and we need to adapt what balance is and how we create that. Would you say that's true?
Oh, I would say that's 100% true because it's not the same for me anymore. Now I'm more focused on let's get the work done so I can spend time with my family. And before it was, whenever I could fit a workout in. But now I'm more prioritized on she gets out of school at 3 o'clock. I would like to be, sometimes done by 5 and then I'll pick back up later just so I can have dinner with her, take her to her activities, like spend that time with her. But before, that wasn't the case. I could go to a later workout class, but it's just you got to prioritize around what your life is at the time. And it's going to look different for everyone. Some people will say, "Oh, I leave the office every day
Yes.
at 5." That's great. Some days I don't, but that means maybe I did something in the morning that I wanted to do or that, I didn't, I had to put in my schedule that was something personal or something that needed done. So then I worked later. Or you work on the weekend. There's some weekends where she's at a friend's house or, everyone's gone and it's more conducive for me to work on a weekend than it is for me to, work on a Friday if there was something going on. So I just got out of the mindset of it has to be 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and it's more the holistic approach of it when it comes to it.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So one thing I'm hearing here is it's more about the process than the outcome. It's like it doesn't matter so much how you get the outcome. You're obviously a very successful attorney and you're doing it in a way that really works for you. And this is what I try to get attorneys to do with the amount of freedom that they have, use that freedom to design a schedule for yourself, personally and professionally, interchanging, intertwining. It's changing all the time, as we've talked about, but figure out the process that fits who you are in this moment, not what works for someone else.
I would challenge people to, if you are the one of the people that sit in the office all day, the 8 to 5, and you're just miserable sitting there, you're thinking, I'd rather be doing XYZ, calculate how much time you spent getting coffee, talking
Yeah.
to just coworkers, not getting work done, just walking around the office. That's all, in my mind, wasted time, because I could be working. Maybe it's remotely if your job allows that. I'm fortunate enough my job does allow that I can do a lot of this stuff remotely. I don't have to be in a courtroom or anything. But if it does allow it on certain days, just think about, instead of going down to talk to Joe down the hallway for 30 minutes or an hour, there's an hour of your day gone. You could have been either finishing a project to leave an hour early, or to leave, to get to an event, or if you're at home and have that flexibility, throwing a load of laundry in, doing something else, or taking a walk around your neighborhood, or if you're at the office, taking a walk outside to get a little personal time, instead of, sitting or just wasting time doing those different things. But it is kind of interesting, because when I was in office full time, how much time I actually wasted just doing those little things that you don't realize when you're doing them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to look at. I should do that myself. Like, just take an inventory. Where's my time going? I always look at it in terms of energy. Where's your energy going? Because so many attorneys tell me, I'm exhausted. I have no time. I'm totally depleted. And I'll ask them, where are you putting your energy? And sometimes they'll say, well, I'm spending a half hour just scrolling through social media because I have to do that. And, they don't have to do that. So it's a matter of really asking yourself some challenging questions. What deserves my time and what doesn't? So how do you decide, especially when everything feels urgent? Like you have deadlines you're trying to meet, especially when things are happening urgent, they're urgent at home and work at the same time. How do you decide what deserves your attention? What's your approach there?
I kind of look at where are the biggest consequences, if that kind of makes sense. And I do always try to prioritize, if I can, my family first, especially if it's a family emergency or my daughter, and that is where my attention goes. Now, if it's something just for fun and family, then that's not necessarily the priority. If there's a hot deadline or something urgent at work that really has to be done, but a lot of times attorneys will say, this is urgent, it's on fire, it has to be done, when it really doesn't. So you do need to take a
Yes.
hardcore assessment on, is this really an emergency, or is this still going to be here tomorrow or in a week or the next day? When I was a younger attorney, I felt like I always had to clean out my inbox or answer everything by the end of the day. But I realized that's not the case. I can't tell you how many times I email other attorneys and I don't hear from them for 2 days. So why am I killing myself to respond to them within 30 minutes or an hour, when I'm not getting the same respect in return sometimes? And so it's just learning to prioritize in that way, like what is immediate, what can wait, and putting those into different buckets. And then two, if there's an emergency thing with your family, like I said, I'm fortunate enough to work
Mhm.
somewhere where that takes priority. Like if I need to leave for an emergency, that takes priority. And most people, if not all, understand that if I have to move a meeting or something, is for a good reason at that point, or it's something that goes on. So I really do look at it, just what is on fire. And if I can prioritize my family first, then that's, where it's going to be, because in the long run, that's, what's the lasting effect of it. But normally it all works out, because again, everyone has the same struggles. We're all going through the same
Yes.
thing. And if we're truly honest with ourselves, we'll all understand. And I will say too, the other thing, there's a lot of stuff probably on your list. I know there was on mine, that it was more discretionary stuff, like doing bar association events, or doing that volunteer project for my daughter's school, or doing the volunteer project for something at work or an organization I belong to. And if the work stuff that has immediate deadlines gets too much, I was at a conference once and a speaker said, no is a single sentence. And that kind of resonated. It's true. You can
Yes.
say no, and
Uh-huh.
it's a sentence. There doesn't need to be an explanation. but learning to set boundaries. So now a lot of boundaries I set so that I can do all this stuff is I don't say yes to everything like I used to when I was younger. I prioritize what needs my energy, what causes or what things are most important to me. And then that's where I put my time. And then I do say no to other stuff. And you just got to learn to say no for certain things that come along the
Right.
way.
And not,
Hmm.
and And what I'm hearing you say too is you have to question certain things, like when you're feeling stressed and someone's telling you, this is an emergency. Oh, is it really an emergency? Does this really have to get done right now? Do I really have to say yes to this person? I think so often all of us are moving so quickly, we're just reacting because we think, well, if we stop and think about something, it's going to take up too much time. I should just check things off, say yes to that, accept that this is an emergency, don't question it. And then that just makes things more complicated.
Yeah. So yeah, learning to
Yeah.
kind of figure that out. And a lot of times too, the person who's asking you for whatever it is, they think it's an emergency, but it's really not. So sometimes just having that
Yes.
realization and explaining to them why it's not an emergency, but you will get to it, that it's on your radar and that you're going to get there is going to be, half the battle is just that communication.
So I'm sure that there are times when, despite all the experience you have with this, with creating this balanced way of working and living, where it just becomes so busy that you have to go at a faster pace and you're not integrating in the important things. Like maybe you're not getting a workout in, or maybe you can't do something at your daughter's school because you just have something going on at work you have to tend to. So when that happens, and you shift into that mode of working more and doing these other things less, how do you get yourself back into the balance?
Honestly, I'm one of those people, the busier I am, the more I get done. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced that before. It's like the bigger my to-do list is, the more efficient I am in getting through all those things. But I do have, those times where I do have to say no to things and where it gets really, really busy. And then normally sometimes I schedule a day for myself just to decompress from like a really busy time period when everything was an emergency, everything was on fire. You felt like you were going nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I usually kind of do
Yeah.
like a reset, like just I call it kind of a lazy day, like a calm day. Like I don't work. I spend like, lays around the home, just do just general stuff, kind of turn off my mind. And then I just kind of reset. And sometimes that reset is reassessing what's important, or do we need to kind of shift what we're doing in our schedule? And I will say with kids, if anyone else has them too, every year is different. Every grade they get into is different. Their activities are different. Their demands are different. So it's like a constant resetting, especially if you're trying to balance in getting to everything or as much as you can, plus, meeting the demands of your work so you don't lose your job so you can afford all the activities and, putting it all together in
Yes.
that sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something you said that really stands out. You said sometimes, when you have to work for long stretches and you're really tired and you're some kind of out of balance, you take some time and just laze around, you said, at home. And that is so smart, and it's not lazy. That's recovery time. And so many attorneys do not do that. And what you just said is so true, that when you take that time to just do nothing and just let your mind be free and let your body just relax, you come back to work and you're invigorated. Yeah, so that's great.
That is some of my favorite time, and I don't get it that often, but if I do, if I have long stretches of just go, 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 my family and I, we always say we need a lazy day is what we call it. And it's not like you said, a lazy day necessarily, but it's just a day where we're just
Yeah.
at home. Maybe we're watching TV on the couch. Maybe we're just outside sitting, but we just kind of turned off our brains from all the craziness. We make no appointments, we have no activities, we have no work, just for that day, just to kind of reset and then, go forward from there. So, mhm.
Yeah, so you're talking about a lot of really good boundaries to set and really good rules for creating that sense of balance. So when you think about all of that, going back to when you started living and working this way, what's maybe one or two boundaries that you have set, and continue to set, that you believed have made the biggest difference in terms of how happy you are as a person and how successful you are as an attorney?
I will say one of the biggest boundaries, and this has changed over time, but it really is, especially if you have kids, finding that boundary of I'm going to be at all of her activities. And I find a way to make it there. And whether that means saying, no, I'm not taking that 6 o'clock meeting, let's do it at 8, the problem's still going to be there at 8 a.m. the next day. And so finding that boundary has really kind of kept me, very balanced in that sense. In my balance, like my balance is that. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have my phone or email at the event I'm going to, but I'm not going to take meetings during that time. And so that's a very important one for me too. And then to another important boundary is once I go through those high stress periods or high active periods where I'm just go, 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 my house is a mess, everything's crazy, you just feel completely depleted. The boundary is I have to have that reset day. Like it's only 24 hours. You just have to have that reset day, and you just need to block out that time. And if it's something where you need to put out of the office on your calendar, then put out of the office on your calendar to make sure you get that. And it doesn't have to be a Saturday or Sunday. You can block out a day and just use that as your reset day, whatever that looks like for you. It may be a different type of reset day than mine, but that is another boundary too. And then two, I've kind of prioritized, I guess this is the third one, stuff goes first, like all my fun speaking stuff that I do just because I enjoy speaking. If I get busy in other areas, that's the first thing I start saying no to, because I just can't get the materials done. I can't do like all the stuff, and it's stressing me out more than it's making me happy anymore. And so then I just kind of cut back on that. And then that's something too I can always pick back up when I find my balance again when it comes
Yeah.
to it. Hmm.
Well, you're incredibly agile, which I think is so important. And you're really good at this idea of balance. And I wish we could talk more, but we're running out of time. So, a lot of people listening, I'm sure, want to be more like you, but they're probably wondering, where do I even start? So, what's a tip that you can give for someone who doesn't have this kind of balance? What would be the first thing you might recommend to start on this course?
First, I would recommend just taking a self-assessment. What's important to you? What are the things that make you most happy that you want to incorporate into your everyday that you think you'll make your work life better, or your work life and your, personal life better? And then start small. Calendar, if it is a workout, calendar that workout, and then make sure you get to it every day. Don't make excuses to take it off your calendar. It's a meeting, it's an appointment. You get there, and then it becomes a routine. And then to learn kind of getting out of that mindset of, oh, I'm off the clock at 5. There's no clock as an attorney. Like, you could go work out at 5 and maybe you have a project. Well, then you eat dinner and then you pick it back up if you can work later in the evening or something. You just have to kind of get out of this mindset of you have to do the work between certain hours, and that it's the more holistic approach. But starting small, just something. That's how I started, just blocking out a yoga class on my calendar every day. And then my partner that I worked for at the time, because I was an associate, he knew I was going to that yoga class no matter what. And so it just became kind of like I was known to go to that yoga class. And so then people do catch on and respect your boundaries after a while. So
Yeah. And my guess is when you started to do that yoga, you started to think more clearly, you started to be more efficient, you had more energy, and then you were able to add on new things to create more balance. So, um, thank you, Cari, for all this really great advice. And obviously you have balance if you're able to take a break to do this podcast with me. So, um, I'm just so grateful.
I was just gonna say I love sharing with other people because I see so many stressed out lawyers, and I'm like, you can do this. It doesn't mean you're not gonna have any stress, but you can reduce the amount of stress that we have and make the law enjoyable again. Like, I love what I do. I love working where I work. I love the type of law I do, and I love just everything. It doesn't mean I don't have bad days and where I just want to pull my hair out, but overall, I've just found a good fit. So yeah.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of Lawyer Like an Athlete podcast. And if this conversation made you rethink what balance can look like in a demanding legal career, you can learn more about my work and my book, Lawyer Like an Athlete, at amywood.psysyd.com. That's Amy Wood, AMYWOOD, PSYD.com. And to learn more about Cari Sheehan and her work at Taft Law, visit Taft, Taft law.com. And if you found this discussion today between Cari and I helpful, please leave a review or a like and subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.